So on July the 2nd, 2023, at about 1 p.m., there was an officer in Lorain, Ohio that shot a family's golden retriever. This incident has set the internet on fire, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Alrighty, just before you turn the video off, I want to make it clear that I'm not going to be showing the dog getting shot in this video. What I'm going to do is we're going to talk about the incident. I'm going to show everything leading up to the exact second before the officer shoots this dog. So if you don't like seeing dog shoots, don't worry, you're not going to see a dog shooting in this particular video. You're just going to see the facts and circumstances of the case, because those are the things that I deal with. I don't deal with the emotions of the case, because people's emotions are usually wrong. And I guess that's where I'm going to start this video. I heard about this incident a day or two after it happened, and it was because I saw an article, and the article said Lorain dog owner plans on suing the police department after her dog was needlessly killed by a police officer. So I read the article and I saw a quote by the homeowner that really caught me off guard. It wasn't this particular article, but it does have the exact same quote on it. So that's what I want to go over. And this is an article that says a group holds justice for Dixie rally after a family's dog was killed by a Lorain police officer who has been on paid leave, who has since been on paid leave. I want to address that kind of first when I talk about this incident, because they make it sound like the officer did something wrong and that's why he's on paid leave. I am going to tell you that if you think the officer did something wrong, you're not going to like my take on this incident. The officer did not do anything wrong. I'm going to show you exactly why here in a moment. But the reason the officer has been placed on leave is probably because of risks and threats to his own safety due to lies and misinformation being spread about this dog shooting. I've shot three dogs in two different incidents in the line of duty. The first one was a case where these people adopted a pit bull that had a history of being an aggressive dog, and they also had a Chihuahua. One night, the Chihuahua nipped at the pit bull. The pit bull did what pit bulls do, particularly to Chihuahuas. The homeowner tried to separate the two dogs, and that's when the pit turned on the homeowner and tore his leg up really bad, to the point that he was at the hospital before I was able to respond to scene. I get to the house, there's blood all over the front porch. The medics had already transported him. While we were waiting on animal control, the dog ran out the back door, was charging down the driveway. I had to shoot the dog. I wasn't going to let the dog get close enough to me to decide whether or not it was coming to lick me or bite me. It had already bitten somebody. I killed the dog. Actually, I didn't kill the dog. I shot it. It was taken by animal control and later put down. Most recently, I was attacked by two dogs. They tried to kill me. I killed one of them. I shot the other one. I don't know if it's alive to this day. Regardless, I've shot some dogs in my career. I've had to shoot dogs. It's part of kind of the thing. You don't get put on leave for shooting a dog. You just don't. The first dog that I shot that had mauled its own owner, I had to wait at scene for, I don't know, it seemed like a couple hours, waiting on a lieutenant to respond to do his investigation, had to wait on crime scene to respond, to collect my shell casings. I gave my interview, my statement, and everything at scene. The lieutenant went and reviewed my body camera, talked to the homeowners, the dog owners, did his investigation. I was cleared. I was actually back at work within a couple hours. The investigation took weeks, but I was already back at work. The most recent one, I was actually put in the hospital, so I wasn't unable to return to work. But once I was medically cleared to return to work, I returned to work. I was back at work a month and a half before the investigation was complete. I just got the investigative packet back the other day. What do you know? When you get mauled by two dogs and you shoot them, you're cleared in that dog shooting. But I was not put on leave or anything like that. Officers are not put on leave for shooting dogs. It's just not something that happened. This particular case, the reason he was put on leave is because of all the misinformation in there about this incident out in the public. And the biggest source of misinformation out in the public is coming from the dog's owner, who's been making a lot of inflammatory statements out in the media. And I want to read that now, because when I initially heard about this incident, it was the owner's statement that made me investigate. So the owner says after she was shot one time in the street, he should have just let it go and let us take the dog where she needed to be treated. But he didn't do that. She was crawling, useless, helpless in the street, and he continued shooting her. She was just trying to come back to safety, and he kept shooting her 3 more times after that. That's a statement that I take issue with, because this is what the officer saw, and we're going to rewind this video here in a second. This is what the officer saw immediately before he shot this dog. In mere milliseconds after this image was taken, he shot the dog. The dog, with the initial shock of being shot, fell to the ground. It then jumped up again and continued to run towards the officer. The officer was backing away as the dog was running. He shot it a couple more times. It then fell in the middle of the street. Unfortunately, it was dragging its hind legs behind it. It pulled itself over the curb, and I believe that's where it ended up dying a few minutes later. He was not shooting a dog as it was hopeless and helpless and uselessly trying to crawl to safety. The dog was absolutely running while he was firing shots the entire time. Now let's go to the actual incident. In the article that I played for you, or that I read for you, there is a statement from the department, which I'm not going to read. I'll just summarize for you. It said that there was a citizen complaint that there were a bunch of dogs running free in the neighborhood. An officer was dispatched to investigate. That's what we have now. The officer is showing up on scene. There's a bunch of dogs here. There's some people walking. It looks like they're walking from down the street. So the dogs, they must live down that way somewhere. They're coming over here to try to gather up their dogs. One person here is trying to contain them, and this dog here is just kind of meandering around. It looks like the old one. So the officer pulls up, gets out of his car. This dog runs towards him. It doesn't look like it's dangerous. It's not exhibiting any signs of danger. The officer actually puts out his hand and tries to pet the dog. You can see the officer's hand right here in the video. And you can see these 2 dogs are not very happy with that officer trying to touch their friend. So this next part only takes about a second and a half from when this officer goes from trying to pet this dog to having another dog charge at him, and he decides to draw and discharge his weapon. So here's when the dog begins to charge. You have about a second and a half from here to when he begins to fire. The officer fires immediately after this. Now, some of the comments that I'm seeing about this incident are that this officer was a coward because everybody knows that golden retrievers are the nicest dogs in the world. They would never do anything to harm anybody. Golden retrievers don't bite people. This, that, and the other thing. Look at the position of this dog. Look at its body position. Look what it's doing. This dog is 100% charging this officer, and he's about to bite this officer. The officer has a responsibility to protect himself from serious physical harm. Being bitten by a dog is serious physical harm. You do not have the responsibility as a police officer to allow a dog to bite you before you shoot that dog. You have a responsibility to protect yourself. That's what he did. That's why he shot this dog. Now, when it comes to dog bites, there's a lot of misinformation about that as well. People think, well, he's a golden retriever. He's not a pit bull. It's not like he's going to take you to the ground and rip your arms and legs off. I know an officer personally, or a former officer, I should say, because he's unable to work anymore. He was on a call and he was in a house. There was a dog in that house. The dog was friendly. The dog was actually standing very close to him for several minutes while they were inside this house. For one reason or another that is unknown to anybody on this planet other than the dog that is now deceased, this dog that had been standing next to this officer, amongst this officer, been near him for an extended period of time, got a hair up his brain and decided to turn and bite the officer. He bit the officer on the thigh just above the knee. The officer was forced to shoot the dog and retreat outside the house. The officer was treated for a single solitary dog bite. He was put on antibiotics. He went to the hospital, had the wound cleaned out, this, that, and the other thing. About a month later, the injury became infected and he went septic, almost died, and lost his leg from, I believe it was just above the knee. His leg was amputated. When you're bitten by a dog, it's a deep tissue injury. Basically, the dog's canines are biting through your skin, crunching the muscle and like tearing the muscle in an extremely painful way, causing hematomas under the skin, and also injecting foreign bodies into your body to a very deep manner, right? It's almost like they're injecting poison or foreign bodies into your flesh. That's the best way I can describe it. You can go on antibiotics, but once those antibiotics are out, you're still susceptible to infection. Most recently, I had a large hematoma under my kneecap, where I had an injury that broke the skin, but that wasn't the main injury. It was the swelling and everything underneath. When I went to the surgeon, we decided I didn't need any surgery to repair it, but he did tell me keep an eye on that, because we've had people get serious infections up to a month later with that kind of hematoma. I had another one on the back of my leg when I was attacked by those dogs. I also had to watch. So a single solitary dog bite can actually lead to an amputation. This dog was charging this officer, was with beyond a doubt in my mind, had every intention of biting this officer. The officer's job is not to stand there and get bit. The officer has the right and the authority to protect himself in this situation, as does any other citizen who is being charged by a dog like this. Now, I already told you I'm not going to play the entire video, but I can tell you that he shot the dog once, it fell to the ground, it then jumped up and started to run, and he shot it several more times. It then fell to the ground and was no longer a threat. He stopped shooting the dog. That is stark contrast to what the owner is saying. I don't know. This particular one is crazy. I'm kind of surprised that it's drawn the attention that it has. But if you look at this still shot right here, there's no doubt in my mind that this officer was about to be bit by this dog. He's allowed to defend himself. That's it. That's the end. There is no more. The family and friends of the family are protesting, demanding that the officer be fired, demanding that he be criminally charged. They want him to rot in prison. That's not going to happen. He's not going to be criminally charged out of this. He's not going to be fired. If he is fired, that would be a travesty, and he will be one of those statistics of an officer who was fired, sued to get his job back, and through the efforts of the FOP, he will be reinstated back into his job. And all that's going to do is piss off the community even more, and that's going to start these chants that we have dirty cops out there, that the FOP is protecting dirty cops and all that other stuff, when this is an officer that did not do anything wrong. He responded to a call about dogs on the loose. There's a law saying that you must have your dogs on a leash or properly restrained. These people were in violation of the law. They were not restraining the dogs that they were in the manner that they were supposed to be restrained. The dog owner bears the responsibility for this dog being shot. Officer Elliot Palmer just happens to be the one who was put in the position where he was forced to protect himself from this dog. I think that's all I'm going to say today. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later.